self-talking is driving me a bit crazy, to be honest.
Yeah, you get used to it the more you do it. Luckily I've got Pixel Sift's years of experience behind me. This is like second day. I used to do podcasting a bit, so this is like, oh yeah, this is fine. I'm used to this, but it's very like, oh, what the hell is going on the first time you've done it?
Yeah, I'm going to defer to your experience. Because I'm about 7 episodes in, I think.
I mean, you know, just make it chill. You wing it. You have it. As long as you go in with a rough idea of what you want to get done in it, that's all you need, honestly.
Yeah. Today I've got no idea. So I like to fly without a safety net. I think it's more exciting that way. Probably should introduce our guest today.
That seems like a wise idea.
No, I just thought I'd let it slide because, you know, Justin was talking about the heavy breathing. I thought, let's see where this goes, man. I just don't know where this is.
No, I think that's what's the word for it? You're misrepresenting him. That was me. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, today I'm here with Justin and Sarah, and these guys are going to talk about Trench Crusade. That's what we're talking about today. I know absolutely nothing about it, so I'm probably just going to sit in the corner here and just let these guys riff on what they're kind of doing. But I think before we do all that, probably a good intro is to explain to people what Trench Crusade is, because I have got no idea. I think it's a skirmish game. I don't really know the setting. I don't really know the universe. I don't really know the theme. So
that's
maybe let's start there.
Yeah, so Trench Crusade was originally created by an artist, Mike Francina. He is very, very famous concept artist in the video games entertainment industry. He's done a lot of stuff with like Blizzard. I think he's worked on Diablo. Like, he's a real big deal. And one day, you know, he got home and he was like, I'm tired of people telling me, you know, what I should be drawing, how far I can take stuff. I'm tired of people telling me to smoothen the rough edges. He's a horror artist. He does a lot of that kind of gnarly demons and stuff for Diablo. So he went home and he was like, I want to make my own thing where no one can tell me, you know, to stop at a certain point, where no one can tell me, oh, that's great, but can you just tone it back a little bit? So he started creating some concepts just for fun, and he designed this little trench pilgrim guy, you know, with his little iron capriot and his little rifle, and that kind of kicked everything off from there. So from there he started developing the wider world and setting, and then from there, I think, Justin, do you want to take the next part of Trench Crusades?
Yeah, all right. So
just threw Justin completely under the bus.
Yeah, so from there, I think the first Kickstarter was based around just some of the original characters from it. So the original Trench Pilgrim and a few other models got sculpts of them, not with any game in mind, but yeah, I think it was James Sheriff that kind of took the business end of that and ran that Kickstarter. So and then later on from there, started to pick up a bit more popularity, and Thomas Piernan, who did Mordheim, I think offered to create some rules for the game system, or to turn it into a game. And from there was the second Kickstarter, which was a extreme success.
Yeah, I'd say it completely blew anyone's expectations, including the creators, out of the water, and it's become a bit of a global phenomenon ever since that.
I do remember the noise when the Kickstarter was there, and there was a lot of excitement, certainly at this club back then, about models and their look and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, 100%. So I mean, the big thing about Trench Crusade is, I guess, the setting, which we probably should briefly touch on. So it is an alternate history skirmish game set during World War I, as if the Great Crusades never ended, because way back in the day, some heretic, or some priests that were actually secretly heretical, they opened a portal to hell, and then, you know, they released all these demons onto Earth, and then, you know, you fast forward, it's what, 1918, and then it's the forces of heaven and humanity and the church, and, you know, I guess, just humans in general, fighting a bunch of demons and demon worshippers in trench warfare in 1918. It's pretty sick.
Right. So
it's 1914.
All right.
Start of the war.
That's when the war ended.
Well, I guess I got to brush up on my history lessons. I didn't pay attention in high school. Who can blame me?
So that whole thing is obviously the trenches of World War I warfare, right? And everything that happened in France and all that is kind of set in that, and the tables obviously reflect that as well. I'm assuming there's like lots of trenches here.
Yeah. So
otherwise, just be called Crusade, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So at the moment, it's entirely focused in the Levant, and surrounding areas. So very European. Australia, unfortunately, doesn't exist in the
well, not in the state that we
Yeah,
kind of know it to be, right?
No diggers, no Anzacs.
Yeah, I think there's some clever ways that I think you can still include kind of the DNA of it into your warband if you wanted to, but yeah, not explicit Australians at least.
So what are the factions then? Is it just purely humans, demons, and then splitting off from that kind of stuff, or is it your typical British humans, French humans, all that kind of stuff?
So you can go down the direction of for example, I play the Prussians, so you know, that's very specific, but they're all represented by sub-factions. So for the I'm not really thinking of the word, but the geographical related places, I guess.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of the heaven aligned or humanity aligned, not necessarily heaven factions, are human based, but with like some otherworldly elements to them. So, for instance, a lot of the Trench Pilgrims, they're all kind of humans, but then you have things like the Communicants, which are people that have taken and eaten the flesh of a Metachrist, and there's lots of different Metachrists, and then they kind of become transfigured and transformed based off the essence of the Metachrist that they consume, and then they kind of become something somewhat non-human from there. And then you've got the Iron Sultanate, which is all based off, you know, things like there's a House of Wisdom is a very predominant thing, which is, you know, like from historical kind of records, but they've turned it into more of like they're all based around alchemy and science. They're creating homunculi that fight for them. They're creating these kind of chimeras and these monsters, and then still like a very strong, you know, there are a lot of humans, but like they're creating beasts to fight for them, you know, as machinations of war and things like that. And then on a lot of the Forces of Hell Alliance side, you've got a lot of demons or possessed humans or transfigured humans that are kind of, you know, but they're a little bit more along the monstrous line, a little bit more along the, you know, like demons are running the show there, and then maybe you have, you know, demon worshippers that have once human but have kind of become something else from there. So yeah, there's a lot of fun. There's a lot of kind of horror on all sides, I suppose. No one's really the good guys in this situation when you look at it. So yeah.
Well, accessibility on this, like gaming stores sell models, or you print, or what do you do?
Yeah, so at the moment it's miniatures agnostic, which is really, really cool. So you know, you can bring anything to the table as long as it's kind of within reason, and you know, as long as it's identifiable as what it is. So that gives people a lot of creative freedom in building their war bands in a way that is really unique to, you know, your aesthetic sensibilities. Maybe you want to do something really specific, you've got a really cool thematic idea, you can kind of really lean into that, which is great because a lot of the sub-factions are, you know, like let's say you've got Heretic Legion, for instance, they're just demon worshipping humans. You have a sub-faction called Naval Raiding Party within that. So, you know, that kind of evokes a certain image of, you know, submariners and things like that, you know, when you think of that. So having guys in normal like trench coats and stuff doesn't really work. So you being able to go find like a cool model of a guy in a diving suit with a gun, you know, would be so much more thematic for that. So that makes, you know, accessibility really cool because a lot of people are making proxies, or they're making inspired by models as well as the original officially licensed ones. Trench has started to release plastic kits now. Obviously with the huge success of the Kickstarter, they've gone, okay, cool, we're gonna do plastic now. So they're starting to roll out plastic packs, you know, more or less exactly what you expect, which are being rolled out in game stores now. So yeah, it's quite, you know, depending on, you know, what your personal preference is, it's pretty accessible to get in and start playing just because of that. And there's definitely a lot of encouragement that you kind of make a warband that is your own within the community, which I think is really fun. So it's really, really cool if you're a creative minded type and you really get into the whole, I want to create like a story and like a narrative behind my guys, and you know, they're very unique to kind of me and what I want to do on the table, which is cool.
How big is the band sizes on these? Obviously a skirmish game.
Yeah, so the kind of hard limit for the start of a campaign is 10 models, if I remember right. It might be 11, I'm not totally sure.
It's around 10 or 11, I think,
and then it slowly increases. If you're going by regular campaign rules, it can get quite big. I think it's 18 or 20 that you end by the end, but yeah, generally I think most games you would see, I don't know, probably 7 to 14 models. That would be an average, I'd say.
Yeah, because it's not, you know, you don't have to play the game in a campaign setting. It's obviously, it's a standard skirmish game as well, so one-off games are obviously a very viable opportunity, but it is also kind of taking off the, you know, it's very much like in the same vein as Mordheim, where your, you know, campaign players encouraged to kind of progress your warband to increase them and to kind of go on from there. So, but a lot of, you know, an average game for me feels around like, closer to 10 models feels like a really comfortable place to sit. So it's quite easy to get into if you're a bit intimidated limited by, doing a lot of hobby or like a large model count, it means that, it's a much smaller scope, so it's a lot more comfortable to kind of do a lot of different warbands for. If you're just getting into it, it's quite an easy game to learn and pick up and play as well. So I feel like it's in a really good position to encourage newcomers to the hobby or new players in general, just because it's not too many models, rules are pretty straightforward to learn, and if you just learn your crew, it's really easy to get into and just get amongst it with.
And it's 4x4, I'm presuming?
Yeah, so there's a bit of debate around that at the moment, because it's been 4x4 for
Sounds
the
like
longest.
controversy to you.
So
Not going there.
originally it was made for 4x4. With the 1.0 rules, they have some that are 4x4, like some missions will explicitly be 4x4, some are explicitly 3x3, and some are just kick. So especially for events, it's been a bit of a challenge, because going from a 3x3 board to a 4x4 with an extreme density of terrain, it creates a lot more work, because you're going from 9 square feet to 16 square feet, which is a very significant increase. So I think it generally plays better on a 4x4. I actually think the best way, absolutely best way, is actually a 3x4, because the depth of your deployment zone doesn't really matter at all in Trench Crusade. So that's kind of where I kind of sit, but
I think the big thing to keep in mind is the game's still very much in its infancy, so like a lot of things have shifted. There's because of the boom in popularity, there's been a lot of community feedback, a lot of community discourse around things, so we're seeing things shift. But I think the big thing is, at the end of the day, like if you have a personal preference amongst your play group, it doesn't super matter. I think if you're like within the 3x3 to 4x4, but I think it is a tricky thing when it comes to events, just with regards to that, because you do need a decent amount of terrain to make a board work, and then obviously how are you sourcing that, who's putting that together. So because obviously we've been looking at running events recently, we've run a couple events so far, and just the tricky thing is, because it is new, no one really has terrain for it, and because it requires trenches,
specific terrain,
a certain height of trench, that and there aren't really many other games that satisfy that have trenches for the same height traditionally. So it's not like you can just use existing terrain from other game systems. You kind of do have to like make stuff from scratch for it, or kind of procure stuff one way or another. So
would Zone Mortalis be comparable with trench height? So there's that one, but again, that was quite niche as well, wasn't it?
100%. So which makes it a bit tricky, but I think again, it's just because it's so fresh and new, and I think as long as it if it sticks around and people keep supporting it, I think you'll see it kind of popping up more and more people contributing to it and whatnot. So I think it's just had a very big boom for a very young stage in its development, which is quite interesting. I think it's like you don't really get things like this all that often, so it's quite exciting kind of seeing it grow and change and shift in such a short period of time.
And the events you run, what kind of pull are you getting? How many people are you getting turning up to those?
So Sarah, Anton, who was another ex-TGA staff, and myself, we've been starting an initiative called Trench Crusade Melbourne Events. Which is pretty self-explanatory.
I'm Welsh, mate. You might have to explain that shit.
But so we're using that kind of banner to really push events, and really just not just like 1 day or 2 day events, but also just community initiatives. So like over Christmas we did like a Secret Santa. So
it was a Secret Saint because it was Trench Crusade.
So everyone painted each other a model, but basically so Anton ran when Trench was at its absolute height. He ran a pretty big 22-player event.
Yeah, it was like 22 or 24 players, I think, at TGA back in the day. So that was quite an impressive turnout, I think, for especially with Trench Crusade. That was 2025, wasn't it? Early 2025.
Yeah, it would have been right at the start.
Yes, that was the start of 2025. So that was a quite a strong turnout for a niche game like Trench, for TGA especially at the time. just because generally speaking, like working at TGA, it was very hard to pull good numbers for niche systems at the time. Obviously 40k and AOS and all your other big heavy hitters or established long-term niche communities like Lord of the Rings and things like that, they always did well. But for something so new and so fresh that was so young, having that many people was phenomenal for Trench. So I think we were really, really, really proud of that. And it was a fantastic event. Like, I think we both got to play in it, luckily, had a really good time. Anton did a fantastic job of running that, and it was overall a really positive experience for the community. And then he ran another one, which that was the doubles event was the next one, wasn't it?
So there's been a few since, and they started to really peter off. And some, like, there just weren't even enough players to actually run.
Which, to be clear, that's nothing on Anton. That's just the nature of the difficulties of a niche community, and Trench, going through its own turbulent development cycle as well.
So Trench started to kind of enter, I would say, life support locally, and that was kind of what prompted us to try to create a larger community initiative.
Yeah, 100%.
So systems do have peaks and troughs, and we talked about this on a recent episode with the new edition of Horus Heresy, and obviously that's how I met you guys, playing that. You're world eaters, and you with your multiple factions, I think.
Being both world eaters, and then he started with word bearers. Now I want to do word bearers, but it's like there's a thread through all of it.
Like new edition, and there's hardly a game played here, and back then there was like probably 6 to 8 regulars. It was just not the main system here for a spell.
100%. I think that's the tricky thing, because because Trench is going through a bit of a turbulent period where there is more frequent changes or suggested changes or the possibility of change at the moment compared to Heresy, which is on a very set cycle that has a larger timeline to it. So when something changes and people don't like that, or it makes people feel confused or conflicted, or change is scary to people, whether it's good or bad. So naturally we're going to have a bit of a strong reaction to that. And I think especially for a game that is so young and has so many people with eyes on it, with so many opinions on how they think it should be this way or that way, it's going to kind of create it's just going to make things feel a bit rocky. So I think it hit a point where it's like things were feeling a bit rocky, things were starting to peter off in the local scene, and obviously if there's it's hard to have a game live off just casual play, like people showing up just, I feel like playing a game on Wednesday. I think it needs those almost like the long-term motivation of, there's something, I'm working towards something. I'm going to paint an army for Arc, I'm going to paint an army for this thing, I'm going to do a campaign that's keeping me consistently working through. So I think we sat down and we were like, well, things are starting to kind of peter off, the game's almost kind of on life support, or we kind of felt like we wanted to kind of plug it into life support and go, like, let's do something, let's give it give it an IV drip of vitamins and just start to gradually try to get some momentum back and build things up and kickstart something by just taking that initiative and taking that step and going, all right, let's make events happen in some capacity, let's start drumming up more excitement, let's start to kind of coordinate things. And we started pretty tame. I think we
I don't know, actually.
We started,
it was
came in
pretty,
swinging. Yeah, I mean, what was it? Was that's right. Yeah, no, I mean,
So
we started
I think
tame with
that
the
was
planning, and then we came in swinging with our first event, I guess. Yeah.
So we had an event that started with, I'm not sure, Pardo's event. Do you know Pardo from? I've forgotten the name of his.
I've forgotten it. I'm so sorry.
But he does, this amazing heresy event on a cruise ship. It's, all stops. Just absolutely nuts.
We spared no expense.
Basically, and it's one that you had to apply for. You had to get accepted for your model quality and stuff like that. We didn't go that extreme, obviously, but
obviously we're inspired by that kind of level of quality event where the person putting the effort in does a lot to make it a worthwhile experience for the players, right?
I was just about to roll out my kayak and Werribee South for you, but
so that and Adam's events obviously just have for Heresy just have a lot of extra effort put in. It's not just you show up, you play your games and you go home.
Shout out to Adam of Preferred Enemy, absolute legend in the Heresy space, and definitely a huge inspiration behind what we wanted to do, because we sat down early and when I say we kind of slowly ramp things up. That was very much in the planning stage. We discussed, what are we going to do? We're going to make a Discord. We want to do this. We want to do that. But how are we going to start building up that kind of, how are we going to bring things back and making sure that it wasn't just we come in with an event and then nothing. We fully was like, what are we going to do as a long-term plan? And looking at what Adam did, because he was running PE year after year pretty consistently, and seeing an event, we managed to go to a couple luckily, and seeing the kind of caliber and seeing the community pull and what it meant for that community and how much people worked towards preparing a new army for that, and how revered it was, and how everyone that we'd spoken to at a PE or afterwards was just like, it's the best thing ever. It's fantastic. And
steady
having
on now,
things
steady
like
on. Don't put his ties up too much. He does watch this podcast thing.
oh, shout out to Adam.
No Retreat is the event run by Plato that I was thinking of, and the way that they do it, because it's an international audience, and everyone's flying over to Gibraltar for it.
Right.
They do this lead-up campaign, and I thought, because we're starting, this community from almost, the rubble of where Trench was, figured by starting to get people who are maybe a little bit interested into it, giving them some sort of social interaction with the other players before the event day itself is a good way of doing it. So we had a month-long lead-up campaign, which you look like you want to say something about.
Not necessarily,
Okay.
but I'm happy to talk a bit about it if you
Don't have a
if you want.
domestic here, mate. It'll take that off camera.
But I'm trying to.
We've lost. We've derailed
The
him
map.
here. We've derailed him. He's a rose between two thorns here, Justin.
Well, I think we should talk a little bit about what kind of created the map in the first place, because a big thing that we were experiencing with Trench is we didn't really feel like there was the Trench part of the warfare in the experience. It's a great skirmish game, it's really fun, but we felt like it was lacking a certain sense. After playing a campaign at Tech Gaming Arena that was the default campaign, we were like, well, this doesn't really make me feel like I'm running around in World War I fighting demons. I feel like I'm lacking that that feeling of trying to take ground and hold a front line and all that sense. So that's when Justin had a very cool idea.
Yeah, the campaign is, even now, reskinned Mordheim. That's really the nicest way to put it. And
Bold but controversial take.
yeah, it is.
He's not wrong.
The injury table is 1-to-1 with Mordheim when you just account for Trench's specificities on rules. And to me, it's Mordheim with its exploration and stuff like that. It really it captures the feeling of exploring an abandoned city or a city in ruin. That is not the setting of Trench Crusade. This is kind of tied into Pedonius because the map was going to be reused, which it has, and since spawned 2 maps at different locations. But so for our campaign system, we went for a map-based thing and made it more about managing your casualties, which seems a lot more like a decision that you would be needing to make in a World War I setting.
So the prototype for our kind of current campaigns that we're running that have this kind of map-based system was the lead up to Pedonius, so it was our month lead up. So it was all digitally based, so we encourage people to kind of casually jump in, and you could jump in at any point until the last week before the event, and each week you would kind of cycle and there'd be an update. And the idea was that we would have players on each, so you'd have people divided into factions of hell and factions kind of humanity, and every single week we'd get everyone to kind of coordinate and agree on where they wanted to advance a certain number of squares on that map. So that would simulate you dividing up a larger force and choosing where to take territory across no man's land, and then every week a fog of war would lift, revealing the enemy's previous steps of location. So you'd never know exactly where they are in that live moment, but you'd see where they last were their previous turn. So it had this fun little game where people were encouraged to try to suss out where the enemy was moving, because you don't want to necessarily end up clashing on that square, because then you're potentially losing out on claiming that terrain. So, and we were going to we made it very clear that for the actual one-day event prevent the desecration of St. Pudunius, the ultimate outcome of the map would have an impact on that one-day play. So it really incentivized people to really get amongst it and try to kind of come out on top and try to claim points of interest and do all this fun stuff. And that kind of led to a really interesting thing because the community started all chatting on Discord before the event. So by the time the event rolled around, a lot of people kind of already felt familiar and they kind of knew people, which was really fun. So we had some interesting things come out of that as well that I think it's just worth mentioning. So, because we had this kind of two-sided thing based off things like preferred enemy, we noticed there was a bit of almost like a culture that evolved from each kind of side. So for the forces of hell, they were very they were like war generals. They were plotting. They were over this map. They were trying to get inside the enemy's mind and go, no, we think they're going to go here because of this reason. So if we go here, we have the most likely chance of getting this point of interest. And then you go into the heaven chat, and then someone would just say, if God wills it, and then they'd all do like a praying emoji, and then they just go send it. You don't care, which was very funny. So
yeah, you had the very tactical players that were very drawn to the hell factions, and then the humanity factions were very much like blasé. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So this campaign is actually live here at Westgate right now, yeah? And how many players have we got that's lobbing up into this place?
Yeah, so what's happening right now is that we're running two different kind of parallel campaigns. It's called the Frontlines campaign. So it's something that Justin developed off the back of Pudunius. So we've taken that kind of lead-up campaign system, we've extended it. So he's done like a modified version of Trench's base campaign rules with like a larger kind of territory map that players claim as they progress. So do you want to talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, so I guess, where do I start? I guess one of the big problems that we've seen in like previous campaigns is there's just an attrition of players because once you're one game behind, then it's easy to start to go, I just won't bother, I'm too far behind, and I don't, even with catch-up mechanics and stuff, it just...
And this is the role-playing skill-up mechanic.
Yeah. So
I think on top of that, a lot of people that are playing Trench are adults with busy lives, with kids, with families, with all this other stuff going on, and they don't necessarily have the degree of commitment, or they don't necessarily want to, which is also fair. There's a lot of different games out there to play. There's a lot of different things that you might want to do in life. So to have the kind of dedication to completely stick with something every single week is not necessarily feasible. So, and if you fall behind on that, on top of maybe you're struggling with your games, and then because of all those other things, it's a lot easier just to kind of quit and move on and do something else when it's no longer fun. And if it's no longer fun, that sucks. So we wanted to or Justin mostly wanted to try to solve for that and try to create a system where it would be a little bit more flexible for people, so you're less likely to hit that point of going, well, why do I bother showing up? I'm not going to have a fun time. I may as well stop.
Because this guy's faction is all tooled up with all the best weapons, all the best abilities, all the best gear, and you're just going to get ruffle stomped.
Yeah, and I'm a guy with a stick, and I keep rolling badly, and all I ever will have is a stick at this point, so why should I bother? So when that guy has a rocket launcher, right?
So you mentioned the progression style of it is more around the map rather than the faction, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it means that you can leave it for a number of weeks and then just kind of slot right in and not be outgunned, outmatched.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you wanted to play a game and then come back in a month's time, you could still have what felt like a fair game, even if the other person's played like 6 games between. There's a few different like contingencies there as well. Like some of it is down to players not being assholes about it too. Generally,
good luck with that.
But yeah, generally, people will want a fair game if they see that they're going into someone who is only just starting out in the campaign. Basically, the way that we've gotten around it is you write 3 lists, and your casualties are only really recorded from your most recent game. So one force will generally be under strength, and then at the start of each game, you'll be able to pick a list that you want to ban from your opponent. There's also a penalty for doing so. So if you just want to pick up casual game, you'll get basically rewarded on the map side for not banning a list.
And you guys have thought about everything here.
Oh, it's mostly I can't take the credit for thinking about that. This is all really from Justin's brain. That's kind of where his strengths mostly lie in this, is kind of nutting that out and going, okay, what's going to work best for this, taking from like lived experience. I mean, I'm the guinea pig of I had too many bad games, I quit campaigns. So then he was like, how can I fix this?
How can I get it back in? Yeah. So does this mean then as well that, say for example, you're watching this right now and you go, I've got some Trench Crusade, I wouldn't mind playing in something like that, but they're probably midway through a campaign. Does that kind of accessibility allow a person to actually join then midstream, even though the campaign is underway?
Yeah. I mean, if you wanted to use the warband from that campaign, a large part of it to keep it more akin to a pickup game, a lot of the skills have been like drastically reduced in strength, because that was another kind of issue that I really took with the default campaign, which was that it really incentivized you to just really power a few models up to an insane level, and then it just becomes a bit of a dick kicking contest with these horribly overpowered
godlike creatures,
which again I don't think really fits the trench side of
nerds. We know we can't regulate ourselves sometimes, so we need somebody to come in and just, hey man, just reconsider this life choice here.
So I think a lot of what Justin's kind of gone and done is he's gone and either reworked things or mostly just kind of picked and chosen and gone, okay, I think this would be here's a selection of skills. So we've taken I guess I don't want to say simplified because that feels too harsh, but we've kind of just condensed some of the rules and just made them so it's just kind of less things to have to worry about. Simplified some things in some cases, again, just to kind of lean into that whole, it's a bit more casual, but not in a bad way. It's a bit more accessible for people that maybe don't want to completely commit. But we've also tried to set it up in such a way that it won't punish you if you want to play more games. So if you're like, Trench is the only thing I care about right now, I only want to play Trench, we're not going to basically stop you from getting that fix. So you can play as many games as you want, and it's not going to, with the way that the Frontlines is structured, it's not going to effectively turn you into some overpowered player. We're just kind of lifting like a gate on people, but you're not getting necessarily bonuses from playing excessively because of the way that, and that's again a lot of the way it's designed is to be flexible for people that are they're coming in halfway. It's not going to hurt you. You're not getting very many games that you had to skip a few games, not going to hurt you at all. You're maybe missing out on a bit of personal experience at worst, but you're still able to jump in and play and feel like maybe you're a little bit weaker, but it's not like you're going to walk in and go, that guy's got a Praetor with precision strike and a Malabranch sword, I'm fucked. You're not going to enter a situation like that and kind of go, I don't want to play this game against this person. It's going to be, hopefully it's going to feel a lot more like, it might be tough, but I reckon I can give this a go, if you're going up against a particularly tough opponent or a tough list. And again, with the banning aspect, it does give you a little bit of flexibility over choosing what you want to fight. So you can look at your opponent's different list, you can kind of look at what you've got, and if you're going into an ideal matchup, you get a little bit more of an opportunity to go, okay, I'll have a little bit more control over this situation. But again, it's all just to kind of try to encourage people to play the way that they want to play a way that suits their lifestyle, how busy they are, how much trench they want to get in. So hopefully, so far that we've gotten pretty positive feedback from people, obviously always looking for more. We want to try to streamline this and make it work.
And grow the community.
Yeah, 100%. So a big thing is we really wanted this to feel like really experienced players and brand new players could all come in and have fun, and it would facilitate both of those equally, because I think that's a big thing is, for me, I've been new to war games pretty recently compared to a lot of people that have been in this space. Maybe even if, a lot of people in the scene, like they've gotten in as kids, they've taken a break for a bit, they come back as adults, so they've been playing for a lot longer. I'm pretty fresh. So for me, jumping into new games, I always found very intimidating, especially if they were older games, or, you come into an existing community and everyone knows all the rules, they know what's going on, they're really on top of it, and I'm not good at learning rules naturally. It takes me a while. So for me, I'd always be very nervous and very scared of jumping into something where you have this existing group of people that kind of know what's going on. So I think on top of that, we're trying to kind of have front lines also be a way to maybe make it a little bit less intimidating for you to jump into a campaign. Because I think having a campaign is a great way to learn, because you're regularly playing games, you're gradually adding more models, adding more equipment, so you're scaling things up at a comfortable rate. But I think, having a campaign that doesn't make people be like, oh, that I don't think I could survive in that. Like, it's too scary. There's too many players. They're too good. So this is too much going on, because a campaign's also kind of overwhelming because there is so much equipment, so much skills, so much this, so much that. So we've kind of just tried to make it feel a little bit more like, a little bit more accessible to like that. I guess the players that we've seen in our community. Obviously, this doesn't work for every community, but what we've seen is a lot of people that are busier or don't have the time, and maybe kind of that, as Justin said, that drop off. So we've tried to kind of solve for that and provide what we think would work for the Melbourne scene, and hopefully kind of lift that back up a little bit. And I think it's gone pretty well so far.
And you've got, what's your numbers at the minute? You've got like 20 odd players or something across the clubs?
Across both, I think there's 12 at TGA and 8 here.
Yeah, and there's overlap between those players, and that's not total people, because a bunch of them are playing at both locations. But I think that's also the beauty of it, is if you do want to get a lot of traction and you want to be a part of two different campaigns, it also makes it very easier for you to kind of engage with those. And something very cool, actually, Corey has made us a spreadsheet that helps us track for all the players. We have a live updating map, so he's done some coding for it in Excel or Google Sheets or whatever it was. So we have a live updating kind of little territory map, so people can kind of see where they've contained territory. They can see how things are progressing. You can see where players are kind of ranking at and stuff. And it's just really cool because that's all on the one live updated sheet online, so people can kind of see where things are at, and that's all kind of public information, which makes it super accessible as well. So everything's in the one spot. On top of that, I think we have over 50 people on the Discord now. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think we just broke 50. I think so.
It's good.
Yeah.
Well, we are on the clock, and as Corey is here, he's just like, how long is this going to take? I was just like, hang on a minute, mate. So we'll get you out of here on this one. So the other thing I want to talk about is you guys are like killer artistic hobbyists as well, aren't you? So you posted something recently, was like how to paint Trench Crusade or something?
Yeah. So again, just trying to keep the community engagement as healthy as possible. Thought, because we really want to, much like the Heresy community has done, it's a really encouraged hobby, and unfortunately and our local community is pretty good for it, but globally I think there might be a bit of a trend towards things like TTS, playing online, and drifting further away from the hobby element of it. So to kind of keep that side engaged, we started doing some painting classes through TGA. So we did 4 so far. They were quite long days because they were 5 hours each, and there was 2 per day.
Right.
But yeah, the first 2 were focused mainly on metallic, so whether that's painted armor, or bare metal, that kind of a thing, and just some things that can kind of elevate that with, I would say, very little actual technical skill required.
I mean,
well, I think the goal was, as long as you've put paint on a model and you've done some amount of painting before, even if you're very inexperienced, the idea was you'd walk away with a lot more knowledge and a lot more kind of comfortability with putting paint on model. And I think a big thing is we were kind of subtly teaching people how to think about things like contrast and point of focus, and drawing the viewer's eye across a model, all things that I think are really critical to miniature painting. But a lot of people coming into it are coming in maybe from the gaming perspective, and they're not really coming in from a fine art perspective. And I think that overlap is really fun about miniatures and about miniature games and what you can do. And I think when you're looking at a tiny little guy, really far away on the table, if you can kind of spot that guy and go, oh, that looks interesting from a distance, then you've done a lot. And we were really hoping to kind of impart some of that knowledge onto people and kind of show them so, because it was also not just about teaching you, here's how to get a cool technique. It's we're teaching you how to think about things a bit differently when you go to put paint on the model, and I think that was half the fun of them as well.
The other thing as well with gaming is nobody wants to play against unpainted models.
Yeah.
But on the other side of then, and you talk about people who might be sitting at home and didn't want to come in because of the vastness of a campaign, but they also might not want to come in because they haven't painted their shit. I think for the most part, I don't mind playing against unpainted models, like if you're in a campaign, but each week we would expect to see a little bit of effort to actually get your stuff painted rather than collecting every faction and not painting any of it.
100%.
Kind of deal.
I think obviously, we've kept it pretty casual because the game is shifting a lot, but I think we'd rather not, for a thing like a campaign, we don't really want to police people or, we want to encourage. So we very much want to try to have an approach of like positive reinforcement towards people getting their hobby done. So for us, it very much was the case of like, they were long classes, but the idea was you'd walk away, you'd have a fully painted model, and then that was a skill that you could replicate. And then from there, you get faster. Once you've gone through that, you've dragged your feet through that mud, you've kind of gone through that grit of that first experience, you go, hey, that's actually not too bad. I reckon I can do that in a couple hours next time. And then you get faster, you can apply, you can experiment, you can try new things. But a lot of what we were teaching was techniques and skills that you could apply across other things as well. So, and I think just, elevating people's experience with hobby and showing them there's other ways of approaching it. There's like different techniques. There's things that make, easy effects and effective effects that maybe you'd think, oh, there's no way I could paint something that looks cool, but maybe you just haven't found the right technique yet, or you haven't found the right, special, things like dirty down rust paint. Like, you'd never think you'd get cool rust effects until you've discovered this product. So we're just trying to kind of show people like easy ways to use stuff that is already accessible to you as long as you know where to go find it, and then showing you different ways you can use it. And then you can go on from there and armed with that knowledge do more, and hopefully people will walk away and be more incentivized to do hobby and find hobby more fun as well, because that's the big thing that we've seen is maybe people, their ticket to playing is painting, but how can we make the painting more fun and more engaging so that you're more inspired in that, and that that overall you just have a more holistic positive experience with a hobby.
This is something I've always struggled with, because you listen to like gun hobbyists, people like Adam and Kieran and Orty and yourselves, and I just can't connect with the words "this model was so fun to paint." I just find it an absolute chore more often than not. So I'm just like slap chop, speed paints, you know what I mean? But my sons are both painting stuff now. He's playing Blood Bowl over there, Lane, and he's probably painted that team himself. And then Bran, my youngest, he started painting as well. And I post their efforts on the WhatsApp group with those guys, and they kind of like, not only am I the third best Blood Bowl player in my family, I'm also the third best painter at this point, and they've only just started. So no shame. They'll probably
good on them.
They'll probably listen to you more than me anyway. So maybe we can kind of hook into your tips and your models and that, because the stuff looks amazing. You were sketching last week or something.
Yeah, I was doing a little bit of sketchbook drawing while I was watching Justin play, just because I'd forgotten if I can't remember if I'd finished my game or I didn't have a game, and I was just like, I guess I'll do some more art. But I think it's not easy. I think that's the thing. It's like, a lot of people, like, yes, a lot of the time, like, we'll paint a model and we'll have so much fun, but what you don't see is the days that Justin will come in and go, I hate this, Sarah. I'm struggling with this. And the days that I go, Justin, I do not know how to do this. I'm so underconfident I'm going to pull this off. It looks hideous. And then, but that's part of it, I think, is it's not always fun, but the thing with art, I think, is that, like, it's the pushing through that, because art, I don't think ever truly comes easy to everyone necessarily. And I think if art is always easy, then you're never really challenging yourself to improve. And, I think it's a bit of a mixed bag, but I think it can be made a lot easier if you are armed with the right knowledge, the right tools, if, you have the right guidance. And, when I first got into this hobby, like, I've been a digital artist and I've done traditional art for a lot of my life. And, I was like, I know how to put paint on something. No, I was terrible. My first models were awful, but, Justin being a very, like, calm and guiding hand and being like, here, how about you try this? Hey, I think if you just did this look a lot better, and just gradually building me up. I think having that kind of guidance can make a big difference. So we're really hoping that, we can try to, like, do more of that. And, when people say to us, oh, hey, this looks really cool, I don't know, I can't fathom how you could do that. It's like, oh, it's easy. Let us show you. So we're always, like, here to, show people what we do. And we're always still learning as well, I think. Like, you're always learning, always experimenting. But I think, just knowing that there's a faster way, or knowing there's an easier way, or knowing that there's an alternative, and finding what works for you as well. So, like, the way that one person might enjoy painting might not be the way that you find joy in painting. So if you're like, oh, I've tried airbrush airbrushing an army and I hate it. Then, you know, there's other ways to approach getting an army done. You might go, hey, this is actually really fun. I love it this way. And your mate that's airbrushed his entire army might be like, oh, I hate painting like that.
Yeah, you got my way, which is a rattle can.
Yeah, but you know, like that's
whatever works, man.
But I think that's the thing. It's like I think a lot of people approach it with being like, I've got to do it a certain way. It's like, no, whatever way gets you the final product that you like is the way.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, being a little bit more like, processes can be good as long as they're working for you. But you know, there's no two ways to skin a cat. I guess there's no two ways to get paint on a model, I suppose. But
and the good thing as well is, like, I'm old enough to remember Goblin Green the first time around, but back then there was no YouTube, and now you got all these YouTube tutorials from absolute weapon painters and stuff like that, you know, and just different techniques you can learn from that kind of stuff as well, and apply that if that's the journey that you want to take. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I think display as well has really, because we're going to competitions so much now, like there definitely are some frustrating points in those projects sometimes not, but you know, sometimes it is just part of painting, unfortunately.
It's the pain in painting, isn't it?
As Ben.
See what you did there.
I mean, I can't take credit for that one. You know, that's an age-old saying. But I think that's the thing. It's like, you know, I think I could make it fun if I only ever did a very narrow band of things. But I think both Justin and I, we're far too engaged in, and you know, the great spectrum of what you can do with art, what you can do with miniatures, and we both have too much, I think, grit and tenacity to try to go, I want to do that. How do I do that? You know, we see something, we like it, and we go, well, how the hell did they achieve that? I'm going to try to replicate that. We're always doing something vastly new and different. I think with every project, every army, everything we tackle always ends up being completely buck wild different to the last. Like Justin's been doing a bunch of naval raiding party with a Blood Ocean themed base based off Iron Lung, since we just watched that and quite enjoyed that film.
Right.
So and they look completely different, you know, to the last set of models that he painted. I think that's the joy of it, is always kind of going in and trying something different and seeing what comes of it, you know.
Yeah, it's good. Well, thanks for coming on. Corey's probably like this with the clock. I told him 30 minutes, so we're at 45 currently, mate. So he'll be charging us a minute.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's my fault.
You're playing him tonight?
Maybe.
Is he one of the Hell players or one of the Heaven players?
Look, we're both playing Hell factions.
Right.
He's playing Court, I'm playing Black Grail.
It's a douchebag off. Douchebag off.
I wish I could say that, but buddy, base Black Grail, we've had a bit of a rough time. The antiviral injections are running high at the moment in the game, but that's okay. We're still fighting. We're fighting.
Keep plugging. All right, thanks guys. Amazing work, and look forward to where the campaign ends. If you want to come and join on the Discord, Trench Crusade, and like I say, you can just join midstream with your unpainted models, no judgment.
Yeah, check out Trench Crusade Melb events, I think, on Instagram, and obviously we've also got the Discord. But I think if you Google Trench Crusade Melbourne events enough times, or you check out the Westgate Discord, you'll be able to find us in there. So yeah,
Easy as. And you can see how friendly they are as well. All right, thanks guys. Cheers.
Thank you.
All right, ta-da.
thank you.